Hey guys, welcome to Biddy's Math Binder. Before we start, go ahead and take out pencil and paper so that you can follow along with me. Today we're going to look at completing the square. This is the process used to convert from standard form to vertex form of a quadratic. So I want to remind you of what standard form looks like. ax squared plus bx plus c. That's your standard form. Vertex form is a times x minus h quantity squared plus k. So the process of completing the square is to change from the standard form to vertex form. Let's take a look at an example. Now, I always say that it's easiest when your a is 1. So in this case, I just have an imaginary 1, x squared. So my a is 1. This is going to be a little bit easier than if a was not 1. The first thing that you want to do is add a blank after your b term and then subtract a blank after your c term. My goal is to create a perfect square trinomial with the piece that's in parentheses. In order to do that, I take my b term and I cut it in half. That gives me -2. Now I'm going to square that to get 4. That's the number that goes in your blank. Now I'm ready to write it in vertex form. Okay, so y equals, don't ever forget your y equals. Now, I didn't have an a other than 1, so I don't put anything on the outside. I'm just going to start with my binomial squared. To get the number that goes inside there, it's really just the number you got when you cut your b term in half. Really, if you look at the piece that's in parentheses, what you're doing is factoring that perfect square trinomial. And you're going to get x minus 2 times x minus 2, which is really just x minus 2 squared. Okay? But the trick is just go ahead and cut your b term in half, and that's the number that goes inside those parentheses. Now I want to get my k value, okay? And I just look at that -13 minus 4, and I get -17. So there's my k. In order to get my vertex, it's always opposite of what's on the inside, and then whatever's on the outside, h comma k, 2, -17. So there's my answer. I got my vertex form, and I was also able to find my vertex when looking at vertex form. All right? Now let's do a harder example. Let's look and see if a is not 1. Anytime a is not 1, you want to pull it out, but only out of the first 2 terms. Now that's a little weird. A lot of kids want to take it out as a full-on GCF. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to only pull that 3 in this case out of the first 2 terms. Okay? And now I'm going to create my blanks just as I normally would, like I did in the last example. So let's go over that again. I pulled that 3 out, but only out of the first 2 terms, and I was left with x squared plus 6. Notice my 23 did not change because I did not pull a 3 out. Now, because I pulled a 3 out in the front, I have to remember to put a 3 in the back. At this point, I'm going to complete the square like normal. I'm going to take my b term, and I'm going to cut it in half. That's 3. Now I'll square it. That's 9. That's the number that goes in my blanks. So I'm going to start writing it in vertex form now. Y equals, the 3 that you pulled out in the front needs to come into the front as your a in your vertex form. Now to get my h value, remember, it's just whatever I got when I cut my b term in half. Then I need to say 23 minus 27, because 9 times 3 is 27. I get -4, so that's my k value. If I want to find my vertex then, it would be -3, -4. And I'm done. All right, guys, that's the lesson for today. Be sure to subscribe for more math videos.